So hello from Slovenia to Ukraine and back.
Hi from Ukraine. My name is Yaryno, if you know.
Okay, so let's have some fun and talk about women's rights, which is a very important theme today. So we first gonna talk about 8th of March, the meaning of the history, and how is it different on the west side of Western world and post-Soviet countries. So I will just give you the opportunity to speak. I guess if it's okay with Tia, that our friends from Ukraine start. So Yaryno, please.
Of course.
In Ukraine, a lot of people, they still think that the 8th of March is like a holiday of spring and beauty and so on. And the woman receives some congratulations like, girls, always be so gentle and gorgeous. And it's awful, actually, but on the other hand, Ukraine is a post-Soviet country, and a lot of nationalists, they say that it's like communist holiday and that we don't have to celebrate it. But however, every year, more and more people support the idea that the 8th of March is the International Women's Day. It's about women's rights, not about communism, not about spring, not about beauty. And I like this tendency because, for example, last year we had only maybe some women's march like in 6 cities. This year we have a lot of some protests, some meetings, public meetings. It's like 13 cities. It's like a huge number for me because this year, like I see some difference between that was earlier and that is now. But because we have some anti-gender movements, and they, in my opinion, they start to be some smarter than last year, for example, because last year they made some meeting about against abortion, and it was actually ridiculous, I'd say. But now they change the ideas, and they say that feminists do nothing. They just earn money. They have just some grants, but we, like Nazi or neo-Nazi or nationalists, we help women, and they in some cities they will be raising some money for women who work in hospitals. And some people maybe actually think that feminists don't do nothing, and it's really like I don't know, they really start to be smarter than earlier. But I think that we can change this, and can on Monday can just say about women's problems, women's rights, and especially during the COVID. And that's all, I think.
Thank you so much. So Tia, can you just maybe describe how 8th of March is here in Slovenia?
Yes, firstly, I think we need to acknowledge that like the 8th of March has been and always will be like a workers' holiday, and Slovenian worker women and women in general were always a part of the fight for equality since the end of the 19th century, I think. And every year in Slovenia, we have a protest commemorating the 8th of March. But unfortunately, in modern times, maybe I could connect that to what you said, Yaryno, about the holiday not being focused on women's issues or workers' rights. It's mainly commercialized. It's put in this consumerism concept. So a few years ago, if I could remember correctly, there was like a student organization in Slovenia actually made an event for women students to go shopping for the 8th of March to commemorate the holiday. Of course, a lot of public society kind of called them out, and I think the event was also canceled in the end. But I think that this is important to remember on the 8th of March, that this is not the day when you get flowers and when, like you said, Yaryno, when all the media is like, tell your woman that you love them or some sort of nonsense like that, but to remember the history and to remember to also maybe focus on what is wrong in society, not only in regards to women's rights, but rights in general. Like what are the fights that we still need to fight and what we should focus on. But I still think that we should like end on a positive note here, because I think there has been more and more involvement of the larger public that tries to break this new perceived reality of the holiday, and that they call for equality and change of the current system. And especially we saw that, I think, in Slovenia now with the Yes Means Yes campaign.
Okay. Thank you very much. Speaking of Yes Means Yes, this is kind of our next theme. So Yes Means Yes is currently in Slovenia a fight that we are trying to win. But in Ukraine, as I know, you had this campaign last year. So maybe if you can tell us a bit more about the situation and also how you did it in Ukraine, what were some of the problems you had, what was the solution, and maybe what you recommend for Slovenia, maybe to learn from the mistakes.
I can't say that we made some huge campaign about this law. Our government, it's like, I don't know how it happened actually, because they passed this, no, the law was passed because of to implement the Council of Europe Convention. And the definition in our criminal code about rape is like, I read this, act of sexual nature in form of vaginal, anal, or oral penetration of another person's body with genitals or any other object without the victim's consent. It's like without consent, sex without consent is a rape. It's exactly what we're talking about. And the consent is considered voluntary if it is a result of a free expression of will in the light of the surrounding circumstance. And that's all that we have in this law, in our criminal code. And unfortunately, we still haven't some cases or some, I don't know, some judicial practice when the rape was only based on a lack of consent or without consent. Because in cases about rape, we have only when there was violence or threat of violence, and we really don't have any cases like that. And the law was passed in 2019, and we still don't have many cases, unfortunately. And it's not because we had some, it's because of rape culture, because a lot of women, they just afraid to say about rape. A lot of women even don't know that it's a rape, because after when this law was past years, all internet was filled some with jokes and memes about contract for sex, because a lot of people thought that women should sign some contract to have, and then you can have sex with her, and it was awful, and we're trying to fight it back and explain everyone, but it was really hard, because especially it's a lot of people, okay, they think that sex without consent in marriage, it's not a rape, and it was really, for some people, it was really some revelation, I don't know, because of this rape culture. And we understand that we work with our society not enough. For example, we in our organization, we provide psychological and legal consultation for women who are victims of gender-based violence. It's like domestic violence, rapes, etc. And our lawyer says that women very rarely says about sexual violence, but our psychologist says that in 19% of her clients, they were victims of sexual violence, because they afraid to say it, because a lot of police officers and judges, they just don't understand. Also, we work with police, with social workers, with judges, and work with it, but it's actually hard, but we're trying. And we don't have some in our country, we don't have some methodology of investigation rapes, such like without consent, and we trying to use some foreign experience and explain about some things about it. For example, that consent can be like conditional consent. When a partner says something about condition, like had a vasectomy or wearing a condom, and we explain that person can withdraw her consent. Especially, it's hard to explain that what police need to do when when the rape was like just not because of violence, of creative violence, just without consent or just without saying yes. They really don't understand that the suspect, for example, must prove what he do to find out was a consent or not, and does he ask or something. And we work with it, but in my opinion, we prepare our law, but we don't prepare our society.
Yeah, very nicely put. Always we ask ourselves how to, like, as individuals, prepare the society. Tia can tell us something about this fight that is currently going on, and also how in these right-wing conditions, how these fights are being fought and interrupted. But yeah, we are very happy that in Ukraine, at least, you passed it, and we are bravely fighting on.
Rooting for you guys.
Too.
Varina, I think what you said was beautifully put, like with we have to change society as well. And we agree with that 100%, because at the end of the day, when if this law is passed, I hope it is also in Slovenia, we must focus on the society as well, because unfortunately we saw in the media, on social media, that some people do not understand consent, which I find appalling. And yes, in Slovenia, we kind of started this, the path to this Yes Means Yes campaign in 2018. we started collecting the Me Too stories. And this kind of showed us through real people, through real stories, that change needs to be made in our legislation as well, because this legislation is outdated, and you explained it beautifully before. So that you have to use force in order to correctly defend yourself from rape and all of that. So we started this this path. Firstly, we tried to work with government officials. In 2019, we had this project with the Ministry of Justice as well, but nothing really happened. And so this year, when also there were stories that came out in post-Yugoslavia countries about sexual assaults that happened to actresses, we kind of felt that this was the moment to step forward and do something about it. And we needed to collect the 5,000 signatures that could then change the legislation. And the campaign went great. First of all, we in the Institute would still like to thank all of the volunteers, because we connected with 100 people all over Slovenia that helped us collect these signatures and everything. So I think some hope was reinstated that things can be changed if people want it enough. And then we collected the signatures. We're still collecting them. I think that today we had over 7,000, but the government decided in between, when we already had our signatures, that they are going to pass their law about the same issue. And I think that was done a bit, it was obviously a way to try to outrun the civil society, to say, okay, the public is speaking, let's do this first. But fortunately, we also managed to get our law into the parliament. So our law is actually going to be talked about first in the parliament. So we're waiting to hear when the actual date will be set. So yeah, as individuals, I think we can do a lot. I think the first step is to educate, to find more about these topics. But also, I think that, like in the modern era, everything is put towards the individual, like what you have to do to solve climate change, what you have to do is to stop violence. And I think we as a society also have to push towards institutions to solve these sort of structural problems that we have. But also, yes, I would like to maybe focus individually. If we focus, what we can do is talk about violence, report violence when it happens, because in Slovenia, I don't know how it is in Ukraine, but in Slovenia, it's always like the neighbors are there, we're going to ignore it, we can't meddle in other people's lives and these sorts of things. But no, we have to, in our education system, we have to learn that if you are not speaking about violence, then you are part of the problem.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next theme I kind of briefly want to touch is the Istanbul Convention. So Yaryno, if you want to say something, please.
Okay, I want to say it about the petition. You say that you need to collect only 5,000 signature, yes, because it's, yeah. I'm really surprised because when we make some campaign about Istanbul Convention, we need to collect 25,000 petition signatures, sorry. And it's great. When you talk about violence, I want to say that when we talk about sexual violence and just violence, not a sexual or domestic violence, but without sexual violence, you know. It's like two different things, because women and people in general, they talk about domestic violence, for example, a lot. And they report about domestic violence. And even neighbors, they like, oh my God, they hear something and they call to police. But when we talk about sexual violence, about rape, it's really a big difference. Even when police officers, we talk with them about domestic violence, they trying to do their job well, and we have some restrictions orders just to throw out the husband from the house, from the women, and it works. But when we talk about rape and about consent, they sit there and say, she didn't say no, and what are you talking about? Yes. And it's really harder. To us, it was easier to explain people about domestic violence, but it's harder to explain about rape and consent in general. And okay, about Istanbul Convention. Unfortunately, we have still not ratified convention, but Ukraine signed the Istanbul Convention in 2011. In 2017, our government just failed ratification, and we a lot of NGO, a lot of human rights organization started this big campaign. We run the petition to our president for ratification Istanbul Convention in 2020. We collect 25,000 signature, and it was a huge success, because a lot of people really don't understand what it is. Istanbul Convention, what? Istanbul, what about it? And a lot of people just do it because some influencer sign it and tell about it. A lot of bloggers or some popular people, and it works. And also we find out that we have chatbot in Telegram, Salomia. It's called Salomia. It's a bot. It's bot about menstruation, and we just put this information about our petition. When I said we, I mean not our organization, but our union of 41 organizations support this campaign in general. And we just put information about this petition in that chatbot, and really a lot of people, a lot of women sign it. And it was some tools that we used, and it was useful, and we're really glad that we can do that. But we also have some problems with it, because in Ukraine we had it's called the All Ukrainian Council of Churches, and this Council of Churches has a big influence on our government. And every time when we start to talk about Istanbul Convention, about ratification, they start to talk about it too, and say that it's dangerous gender ideology, and it's only about gay people, and about legislation marriage for gay people, and it ruins our traditional family values, and etc., etc. And yes, and that's why we have really big problems with our deputies, with our politicians, because in our government we have also interfaction deputy association that called family values and something, I don't remember what. And they trying to protect traditional family values And yes, and they stand up against the Istanbul Convention. And now when we gathered our signature, the president said that he support the draft of ratification when this draft get through some commission. It's some paperwork, and but he said yes, actually, and now we just waiting, watching, and trying to find out what to do, how to educate again and again our politicians and our society, our religious people that listen our church and thought that it's about legislation of marriage for gay people. But in 2020s, this association of these family values in our government. If you know, there are in Poland some organization, it's called Ordo Juris. This organization, they like works about abortion in Poland. They trying to restrict them at all. And yes, and this like law organization, I don't know how to explain, a lot of lawyer work there and trying to advocate these restrictions for women about abortion in Poland. And they just arrived in Ukraine and have some cute meeting with our deputies from this association about family's values, and they proposed for the review some convention on the rights of the family, draft convention. And I saw this convention. It's like about family's values, about it's another stupid thing actually, but they don't give up, and they work with our politicians, with our deputies, and we waiting and we afraid about what happened. Yes, and I hope that we ratify the convention finally. Yes, we have a law about domestic violence. It has some points that for implementation Istanbul Convention, but we don't have, for example, in Ukraine, we don't have some shelters for women because we have one in our city because we made that, and but government don't do anything. It's like just NGO some make some shelters for women in some cities, but it's not enough. And that's why we need the Istanbul Convention, because we don't have some educational programs for police, for social workers that need to know about domestic violence and what to do with that. And we don't have any educational programs about gender equality or violence or consent in schools. We have some religious courses, and our Minister of Education don't do anything with it, and we're trying to do something, because in these courses they trying to explain children that sex before marriage is a sin, and abortion and contraception is a murder. Yes, seriously. And this stuff make charges, and of course we need this convention because we want to just throw it out, these courses, and it's a lot of work for our country, and we hope that this law about ratification, that it passed, and I hope so.
Thank you.
When you talked about your response to yes, that domestic violence and sexual violence are completely opposing sides. I agree 100%, but and also we can see that in the stigmatization in society of women who speak out, who step forward and say, hey, this happened to me. Especially in Slovenia, we had this, as I mentioned before, the I did not ask for it. There was an actress that spoke out about harassment during her studies by her professor. And you could see in the media, especially when you talk about like conservative minds in your country, it's like the same in Slovenia, of course. It's like looking in the mirror. And we saw this, the people do not understand actually the mindset or the stigma that comes with it when something like that happens. We saw a prominent professor also in the media had a column in which he said that the professor and the student should meet and be friends in the end, because this was all a misunderstanding. So yeah, the big part of it is stigma. And I like it that you said that you should ratify the Istanbul Convention because we would have this and this and that. And because I'm a student of international relations and I couldn't get out of my skin, so I checked reports from the Council of Europe about how Slovenia is doing with the convention, because we ratified it in 2014, and of course it's an important stepping stone. What is crucial is especially the article that talks about that clear consent has to be given, and we can see that in the law that we're trying to pass and you managed to pass. This is not only laws that happen in different countries, but it is an international norm, and this is a really important stepping stone. But regarding the implementation, when I read the report, I was horrified, honestly, because Slovenia still doesn't have the important mechanisms that it should have. It still doesn't have the crisis centers, it still needs a lot of work to get towards where we should be. And you talked about police as well. I feel that in Slovenia as well, we don't have this strategy of how we should deal with sexual violence, and the police oftentimes react in a very negative manner, and it prevents more people from speaking out. Again, in the European Union, apparently only 14% of all sexual misconduct is reported. Only that little of a percentage, and it's horrifying. So yes, I hope that you get to ratify the Istanbul Convention, but I also hope that Slovenia and Ukraine as well works on that convention, because we can have multiple conventions and we can start implementing norms and whatnot, but if we do not really set our mind to it and really structurize institutions that will help victims and will help preventions, then we did nothing but sign our names on a blank piece of paper.
Thank you so much. Both of you actually mentioned international situations. Also, you mentioned Poland, which was, well, a big hit last year and also this year. I also read an article, I think today or yesterday, about the situation currently in India, if you maybe saw it, that the judge said to the rapist that he should marry his victim because raping inside of marriage, it's not a crime, which horrified me. So have you ever considered, or have you any plans about international collaborations, like countries stepping together and women from all over the world stepping together?
Okay, I want to say something about stigma. You mentioned it, and I remember one case in Ukraine. It's really awful case because one woman was raped by police officers, several officers in the police office, and she was raped by 9 hours. And our media wrote about it. They published the photo of this woman with her child, her name, all information about her that they could find. And it's like, what? It's not only about some standards or some ethics. It's about that everyone know who she is. Everyone know everything, and they even asks some school teachers about is she good mother or not. It's stigma, and it's not only in mind some people that don't do some public jobs. It's about even media, that they really must know how to write about such cases, about such news. But they really, it was awful. And this woman, even she just ran away from some journalists that because they're trying to ask something about her, because they came to her house. And this is about violence in police, and it's about media, it's about our society, and it's about our rape culture, and it's really huge stigmatization of women. And about international cooperation, it's like, I think I can say that we work a lot with some countries, some foreign NGO. For example, the last project that we had, it was International Feminist School online. Unfortunately, it was online, but this school we made with Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Moldova, and we listen about experience these activists, these countries, and we share our experience, and it was really great, because the most important thing is our tools, our experience that we can share and we can take from others. And every year in Ukraine, we make, with another NGO, we make femin camps. Diana know about that. Diana was there, and I met Diana there, actually, yes. And it's like camp for girls, for young feminists, and they can talk, they can find some people with similar values, and they can make their own projects. And it's like very inspiring thing, because before Femin Camp I was like, I'm a feminist, but I didn't do nothing actually. Like individuals, and but after this camp, I feel like I'm not powerless, and I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to find out how to influence on people, how to educate someone, or etc. And we want to do this Femin Camp International next year, I think, and this is also about cooperation. Also, we make some Femintensive. It's like another project. It's about feminist activists. It's like when we talk about Femin Camp, it's not only some activists, but when we talk about Femintensive, it's like for activists that do something, and it's like international thing, because we're trying to connect it with some human rights defenders who came to us and share the experience. For example, it was the last time it was Rosalind Park from USA, Rosa Lagar from Austria, and these women, they share their tools, they educate us, and I think that we should more, I don't know, cooperate and in some project and share with each other some tools and experience. Tjaša, you say about India, and you mentioned India, and I remember that yesterday my boss talked with some India's activists, and they like just, it was like just, I don't know, maybe just talk. And but we know that when we will do Femin Camp, we maybe invite some activists from India because we have some connection, and it's really great.
Thank you. That's super. I didn't know that you already do so much connections with other countries. Also, this feminist camp sounds really cool, and the opportunity that you have it international. I hope you get as many different countries, people as you can.
Yeah, I hope that we also get an extended invitation. I would love to come, even like an individual. It sounds really amazing. And yeah, of course, international cooperation is the only way. In our view, we definitely shouldn't focus on country borders. And like Yaryno beautifully explained, how much can be done when you have different opinions and different perspectives and so forth. And also when we were preparing the legislation, we also connected with people from Croatia, for example, in which they also have the yes means yes format, because it's a way to come up with the best possible solutions to include everyone. And we also hosted an event, as I mentioned before, the Nisi Tražila, Nisam tražila, or I didn't ask for it movement. And of course, we're open for any international cooperation, because only collectively can we achieve change. Because if we only focus on the problems in our own country and don't also speak out about the things that are being done in other countries, then we're only thinking about ourselves. And thank you also to you that you now given me a direct line to also Ukraine, so we can maybe cooperate in the future.
Yes, this was our main mission. We also were wondering, can you give us maybe some guidelines what we can do as individuals to help the current situation, spread the word, make the world a better place for women and actually all genders?
I think that we already talked about it, because when I was, like 2 years ago, I just was very lonely. I lived in the city where there was no some feminist organization or some groups or some meetings. It's just was nothing. And I was a feminist, but I don't know what to do, where to go. And now I think that we need, as individuals, we should unite with others, because I don't know, maybe it's just my experience, but I feel that when I'm lonely, when I don't have some support from people with the same values, I just don't have any. I really feel like powerless, yes, and I can do nothing. But after Femin Camp, for example, I like understand that I'm not alone, that I can just ask some another girls or some another this organizer, another women, and they can help me, they can guide me. I feel that and we want to work with it, because we want to make some local it's like Femin Camp but for younger, like for teenagers, because we want to make some space where they can feel them comfortable, and where they can find people with similar values, and just educate them about feminism, about I don't know, about consent, about violence, because it's really important, and it's like some space for people who don't know what to do, like I was earlier. When I work in organization, when in NGO, I just can ask, and I can propose something, some ideas, and as people who work like me, for example, we can just share our experience and trying to inspire others to do that we already did, yes, because it's hard. For me, it was really hard to even to go for, I don't know, Women's March on the 8th of March.
And now you are the one who organizes that marches, yes?
Oh, yes. And that's why I'm seated in my office today at 10 p.m.
Yeah, I think I would like to maybe tie to what you said before, that you were a feminist, but you didn't like actively participate, if I understood correctly. And I feel that for many people in Slovenia as well. I remember when I was in high school and I was like a fierce advocate for women's rights and minority rights and everything, but nothing, like I didn't do anything because I didn't have like a platform on which I could do it. And I feel that it is very important what you said, connecting. And when I started, because I know Nika, director from before, from when we were little, and I saw what she was doing with really not a big group of people, but she was making change. She was advocating for a better society, and I wanted to do that. And yeah, that is very important. It is being individuals, yes, focusing on our ideas, trying to maybe get into debates with people, and some debates might be really hard, and you might not agree with what the person is saying, but I still think that we should have these debates, because in the campaign, for example, when we also stood in front of like in front of the places where people went to sign the support for the law, and we talked to people, and we saw that many people didn't really understand that this law, that this is yes means yes model is not already here in Slovenia. They were like, some people, when, you know, usually when you come up to somebody and, oh, can I interest you in something, they just want to like they don't acknowledge you. They're just like, oh my god, this is like a survey on something. But then you start telling them and they're like skeptical at first. Yeah, but what is this change really about? And you start to like talk to them and they're like, oh my god, yes, of course I will sign this. This should be as you're explaining it to be. So yeah, individuality, but within a collective place where real change can happen.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, one very important question: what is feminism? Because I think this word is somehow negatively, like for lots of people, like, oh, feminists, they're just for women, blah, blah, blah. And I think it would be nice if we explain so that people who will watch this, I hope as many as they can, they will understand, and maybe we just do this really calm situation like feminism is, and maybe it's different perspective in different countries, but I think we are all fighting for the same rights.
What is feminism? It's really a hard question, because we have a lot of feminisms, I can say like that, because intersectional or liberal or radical, etc. We have a lot of them, anarchy feminism, and so on, and all of them has different definition, yes, but we have one in common: women's rights. And I think that feminism, it's about women, but not about men in general, because I hate this when always when I talk about feminism, a lot of people say, oh my god, again, violence against men, women, I don't know, raped men too or something like that. And oh my God, I can't listen to it because I don't have so much efforts to fight fighting for men's rights because I think it's like men's need to deal with that, not me like feminist. And that's why I think we should talk only about women, but women, it's like women, different women, because discrimination are like women of color, lesbians, or non-binary, or LGBT women. Okay, same that, and it's like a lot of different women, and we need to talk about their rights too, and we need to understand that if I'm white women, I maybe be less discriminated than black women, because that's why black feminism even exists, actually, because black feminists find out that white feminists don't think about them. And that's why I think we need to see that women can be discriminated by race, by sexual orientation, by gender, and like include them too, and don't forget about it, because sometimes we don't check our privilege, and we need to not forget about that.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree that we shouldn't view feminism as just one thing and this is it, and this is like a collective interpretation, because as you mentioned, there are subgroups, there are marginalized groups. For example, if we talk about if I go back to the Istanbul Convention, the Roma community, for example, is very they're discriminated against in various manners in the Slovene society, but also here there is not enough attention paid to them, for example, in the context of sexual violence. But if we strive towards some sort of definition, I feel like feminism is kind of trying to look into inequality, but still look at it through a prism of gender. And changing the system, but still acknowledging gender. But about what you said before, I don't agree with your statement that we should let the men deal with the rape issue with men as well, because if I haven't said that before, it is important that we focus on everybody that experiences sexual violence and rape, because it is not okay in any way. And yes, maybe men should do more of a part in trying to like talk about it and trying to change it, but we can't just let them do it on their own. We have to do it as a group and try to make steps forward, so that, because this is also a part of discrimination, I feel, because many people came up to me during the Yes Means Yes campaign, and they said, "Oh, but this is like a women's issues. I don't need to deal with that." So as well, so it goes both ways, right? So this is not only a men's issue. This is a societal issue. And if a person says, "Okay, this is a woman's issue," it means he will tell that to his son or daughter and say, "Oh, like this is their issue, don't pay any attention to that." So I think that in this regard, we have to fight for each other's rights.
Okay, I agree when we talked about some campaign or some law that we should advocate, because of course, if I just say that to men that it's not important for him, it's like, no, it's a great tool to explain some men why they should sign the petition or something, because of course our law about rape, it's not only about women, but rape is a gender-based violence, and that's why we do that what we do. Mostly it's our problem, and when we're trying to explain this to men, of course we need to explain that it's not only about women. Yes, sometimes I really try to explain men they need feminism too. When I saw another man feminist that trying to explain to men about consent, about rape, about sexual violence, about patriarchy, because it's really, yes, men have some discriminated by patriarchy. They also struggled because of some gender stereotypes. Yes, of course, but I just tried to explain them it, and I just happy that in Ukraine, even in Ukraine, I know some feminists, some men who are feminists, and they work with it. They try and educate another man. It's great, and I support them. But I think that it's up to me. If I want to educate some men, okay, I do that. But if I don't, I don't want to blame another feminist, another women that they don't want to work with men or educate them. Because our projects, they are really about women in mostly, because of course we support all some projects or some people who helps men, but we see that we don't have so much power to defend men's rights, because we have a lot of work with women's rights.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, we understand it's a late hour. So thank you both for coming. And yeah, I really, really appreciate the time that you took for this, especially so close to the 8th of March. Thank you so much. And we will also give you exchange emails if you want to, I don't know, collaborate together about something. Maybe we will have an international feminist camp next year in Slovenia, hoping for that. So yeah, thank you very much from our side.
Okay, thank you for inviting, and maybe we invite you, send you invites if we'll have international feminist camp. I think we can invite you, and why not? It will be great.
Yes, please.
Thank you, and keep on fighting the good fight. I'll do. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.